so beautiful day. Hi, you're welcome again to our series, Effective Communication, a Marital Serenity Tool. Today we shall be looking at the tips to attain serenity in your marriage communication, in your marriage. A healthy marital relationship can only be built on the basis of effective communication in marriage. When couples talk about their problems and they share their dreams, hopes, fear, and even vacation plans, the bond between them deepens. You become more accommodating and understanding of the other person. When you both make effective communication a priority and minimize communication barriers, then your marriage will definitely grow. Effective communication may seem difficult to master, but with practice and the right intention, you would succeed. And you find out that your marriage begins to thrive, rooted in oneness instead of division. It is not difficult as it sounds, but yes, it is difficult. With practice, you perfect it. And everything what's doing in this life is what doing well. There is no one size fits all approach to communication that will work for every couple. You just need to identify the effective approach that works for you. But there are some tips that can help you to communicate better in order to move through conflict or in order to have a sustainable marriage with your spouse. And sometimes people tend to avoid this, but it is not the best thing to do. With mastery, with practice, you become better and you become a master at it. It begins from the heart. And when the intention of the heart is faulty, you cannot communicate effectively. But when the intention of the heart is right, then effective communication can take place. So you need to evaluate, what is your motive for embarking on that conversation with your spouse? What do you desire? What is your goal? So some of the tips that I want you to take away today for effective communication in order to have serenity in your marriage is that you need to learn how not to try to persuade by increasing your word counts. So the fact that you want to make something clear to your spouse does not mean that you should increase the number of words or the number of things you have to say. The fact that you need clarification from your spouse does not mean you need to make your spouse talk and explain endlessly. This is an endless cycle. As you keep repeating the same words, the same complaint, the same arguments over and over without seeking solution. Even if this yields any solution, even if you arrive at any agreement with this method, it comes as a result of exhaustion. And this defeat, it comes as a result of exhaustion and defeat rather than true agreement. And this type of solution usually do not last. The second tip I want you to take away is that do not be quick to speak. Try to understand. Do not always seek to be understood. Do not try to force your idea into your spouse. It is so tempting to speak without thinking things through. Often, this arises from making assumptions about what is being said, or you have a conclusion of what you want to hear, what you expect from your partner, rather than asking clear questions in order to gain clarifications. The third tip that you need to take away is do not use the phrase, "I told you." Do not use the phrase, "That is what you always do." Do not generalize. Do not make your spouse feel guilty or lesser as a person simply because you have said that thing in time pass. Do not pour vinegar into an open wound. That's simply what this is. So I told you so. It keeps your spouse at the receiving end. And when one is at the receiving end, the person does not, certainly this person cannot feel good. So talk out things with your spouse and avoid those phrases. Take out all those vocabularies during your communication. The fourth tip that will do you good is to learn to focus on the opinion. Do not always seek to focus on your own opinion. So remember, I said focus on the opinion of the conversation, not your own opinion. Don't shove your opinion down your spouse's throat. Instead, you can explain by giving reasons, advantages and disadvantages, why you think your opinion is right. Communicate about sharing, about exchanging of ideas and opinions. That's what communication is. Forcing your own opinion is one-sided and is narrow-minded, and this cannot lead to effective communication. The other thing I want you to take away, the other tip, is do not speak rashly. Speaking rashly literally means speaking without carefully considering the consequences of what you're saying. Our words are powerful. Words have lasting consequences. Try to speak in a calm and affectionate way, even when you are angry. Try to speak in a calm and affectionate way, even when your spouse have offended you, because two wrongs cannot make it right. At the very least, aim for civil and caring way of speaking instead of speaking rashly. Your spouse is not your opponent that you have to win or you have to prove a point to. It's not your spouse that you need to win over in order to prove your point. It is important to always keep this in mind. Another tip that will be very beneficial is do not speak harshly. The other says rashly. This says do not speak harshly. The words we choose to speak are very important, and it is good to choose them wisely. So you might claim to be in the right because you don't speak rashly, whereas your words are harsh. So it's important as spouse to take note of these two. Speaking harshly includes yelling. It includes unnecessary argumentation. You need to keep your voice in check even when correcting your spouse. You need to keep your volume, your tone in check. Do not use sarcasm either. Don't make your partner feel or look stupid simply because you want to communicate. Your words can bring healing, and at the same time, it can pierce the soul like a sword. So the question is, which do you desire as a spouse? You ask yourself if what you are about to say will help send the message you intend to send. And then, will it further discussion or it will end the discussion? Or if what you are trying to say will cause hurt or inflammation. If your answers to the letter of this question is no, then you might want to change what you want to say or take a pause in order to calm down. Another tip is that you should learn to listen. Hearing and listening are two different things. They are not the same. The first tip to improving communication is to listen to your spouse when your spouse is speaking. Learn to listen. Be attentive to the thoughts, the feelings expressed, both through verbal and non-verbal communication. When you find yourself responding too quickly, or you find yourself planning what to say next, then you are not listening. Listening involves activeness. When you listen actively, then it improves your communication. When you listen actively, then you are more open and understanding to what your spouse is saying, and you tend to empathize more. So it is good to always listen, but also you need to learn to be patient. So listening does not only help you to understand what your partner is saying, it does not only help you to empathize with your partner, it also grooms you on how to exercise patience, even with others around you. Another tip that is very beneficial is to set up a time-out system. Because we are human, so sometimes our emotions can run high. It is good that during communication, especially if it is during a conflict, to set a time-out system. A time-out system simply means that time when you have both agreed to take a pause. So when communicating with your spouse, for instance, and the discussion is getting heated, the discussion does not have an ending. You keep debating until you reach that point where you want to explode or fight. Then it is advisable that when having such conversation, you agree on short time out when you take a pause. You agree on a word or even a short phrase that you can say to indicate that you need a break. So you can say something like stop. You can say something like break. You can say something like time out. You can say something like cool off. Excuse me. If you are at the verge of yelling or saying hurtful words, simply use your timeout phrase and take a break in order to calm down. Another great tip is to ask if it is really needed. That thing you want to say, is it necessary? You need to ask yourself. So honesty and openness are vital in marriage and in any relationship. But that does not mean that you can say anything that comes to your mind. Discretion is key in effective communication. If what you want to say is born out of frustration, anger, or just wanting to lash out or lash back at your spouse, then you might want to evaluate it. There are other ways of getting things out without being so harsh. Or when you are angry, there are other ways of letting it out. And a therapist would be a good guide in doing this. We cannot cover that in this series. Another wonderful tip is to show empathy. Show empathy during your communication with your spouse. Try to put yourself in your partner's shoe. Think about what you're saying and ask the impact it makes on your partner. How does your partner feel about this? Of course, the best thing or the best person to find out from is your partner. But it is always helpful to imagine yourself in your partner's shoe. So that thing you're saying, if given back to you, are you able to receive it? Are you able to accommodate it? Will you take it with a smile? This is empathy, putting yourself in the other person's shoe. Try to imagine what it will feel like to be in that situation. Developing empathy will help you to communicate effectively. It helps you communicate better for the rest of your marriage years. You can follow up with questions instead of lashing out. You can ask, how does that make you feel? Or, what can I do to resolve the situation for you? So respect your spouse's perspective, even during a conflict. Even when you cannot understand, it is still very important to respect the viewpoint of your spouse, because your spouse definitely might have a reason why he or she thinks the way he or she does. So the healthy thing for you is to ask questions rather than lash out without empathy. With this, we come to the end of this series. It will be a very good thing to go and look at these tips. We'll visit some more tips tomorrow, but until I come your way again tomorrow, I remain your Serenity Coach, Chineye Nwobi. Thank you. Good day. Welcome to the series, Effective Communication, a Marital Serenity Tool. Today we shall be looking at the 7 C's commandment of effective communication in marriage. The 7 C's commandment of effective communication requires that communication should be clear, should be concise, should be concrete, should be correct, should be coherent, should be complete, and should be cautious. The question now is, how does it really apply in marriage? So we take it one after the other. We take the first one, clear. When communicating with someone, be clear about your message. When communicating with your spouse, be clear about your message, your motive, your goals. For what purpose are you saying what you're saying? You need to be clear about that. For what purpose are you communicating? If you are not sure, then the person you're communicating to would not be sure either. But when you get the message across in a clear way, it takes out any form of misconception. But when the person you're speaking to is not clear about your motive of the goal you want to achieve, then you end up sending the wrong message. Seek first to understand than to be understood. That is the key here. To be clear, try to minimize the number of ideas or words you choose to communicate at a time. Don't say everything at the same time. So we go to the second one, concise. This simply means being brief. When you are brief in your communication, it helps you stick to the point at hand instead of magnifying issues that are meant to be light. You need not introduce the previous occurrences, the previous things that happened. Stick to the issue at hand. Be simple and straightforward. To do this, take away all filler words and say only things that are necessary. What do you want to achieve should be your motive here. It should be your compass. That should be what is guiding you. What do you want to achieve with this? Focus on that which you want to achieve and set out in the right direction of achieving it. The third thing is concrete. This is about expectations, and it can never be overemphasized. I've said it earlier in this series that setting unrealistic expectations is setting yourself up for failure. So in communicating, when communicating in marriage, make your communication real. When you communicate real expectations, then your spouse have clear picture of what you're trying to say. Think about it and reflect. What does your spouse require? What is your spouse accustomed to? What timing is it? What environment? Is this the right time? Is this the right environment? And be clear about what you want to communicate. Unrealistic expectations causes pain and conflict in marriage. The fourth commandment of effective communication says correct. Correct communication is error-free. Any communication that is correct is error-free, meaning that it is free of assumptions, because assumptions can just be an error. It is free of confusion. It has no variance. When your communication is correct, it suits your spouse, creating a non-judgmental environment to talk things through. So your compass or your guiding light here should be, does your verbal and your non-verbal mode of communication suit your spouse? The fifth C commandment of effective communication says coherent. So that thing you want to say, Is it reasonable? Did you reason it? Was your communication reasoned? Is it logical? Is it sensible? Always think things through when you want to communicate. Don't just spit out, say things without analyzing it. That thing you want to say, it can mean something else to your spouse. Is it correct? Can you accept it if it is given to you? Does your verbal and your non-verbal expression, do they connect? Or are you saying something else and then your body or your face is saying something else? Let all flow together. And by this, I mean, let your verbal and your non-verbal communication flow together. This is only when you can be said to have communicated effectively. The 6th C commandment of effective communication says complete. Let your communication to your partner be the entire message that your motive has. Do not expect your partner to fill in the blank space or to be a mind reader. Some people try to play smart in their conversation with their spouse, and they try to set traps for their spouse to make assumptions and get entrapped. My question for you is, to what end is this method? A complete communication has everything your spouse needs to make an informed decision in order to take the right action. So you need to ask yourself, this should be your guide in evaluating this commandment. Does your communication invite your spouse to air their opinion, or do you want to start and end the communication? The 7th C commandment of effective communication says cautious. Cautious communication is friendly, open, and honest. There are no hidden results or passive or aggressive tone in it. You keep your spouse's feeling and point of view in mind, and you are empathetic to the need of your spouse. The compass to answering this is, do you consider how your spouse will feel before you say that thing you want to say? Or do you consider how your spouse will feel when you want to say whatever you're saying during a communication or conversation? So for today's task, it will be good. This is the last commandment of effective communication. Your take home in this series would be to look at these 7 C commandments of effective communication and ask yourself, what parts, which commandments are you faltering? Which commandment are you struggling with, and why? When you've answered these questions, you are more able to analyze the compass that I have given here in order to reset the way you communicate. Until I come your way again on this series, I remain your Serenity Coach, Chine Mobi. Bye. Good day. Today is day 9 of our series, Effective Communication, a Marital Serenity Tool. And we're rounding up this series soon. So for today, we shall be looking at some more tips on how to attain serenity in marriage. Then we'll look at the tools, some tools that can actually help you to communicate better with your spouse, and tools that will help you learn the best way your spouse chooses to be communicated to. So we'll dive right into it. The tip I want to give to you today on how to attain serenity with effective communication in marriage is to use the word I. Use the I statement more than you, because the you statements puts judgment on your spouse. But when you use the word I, your spouse is more receptive of what you want to say. This decreases the chances of your spouse feeling like they need to defend themselves. When you use the word I, you make your spouse less likely to feel the need to defend his or herself. But when you constantly put it to your spouse, you make your spouse feel as if they are no good when you use the word you. For example, you could say, I wish you would acknowledge more often how much work I do at home to take care of you and the children. This is an effective way of communicating, rather than say, you are not always available. You don't appreciate all the work I do for you and the children. Another tip is for you to learn how to express your feelings. Your spouse is not a mind reader. Learn to express your feelings, be it positive or negative. The most important thing is to express it effectively. When you trust that your spouse is accommodating of your feelings, you are more able to communicate better. When you trust your spouse, let them know. When you are in doubt, let them know. Express both feelings, negative and positive. You just need to learn how to constructively express your negative feelings. Never bottle up your feelings. There will be less time for you to feel bitterness, resentment, disappointment, betrayal, disapproval when you express your feelings. These feelings need to be communicated in order for change to occur. You cannot bottle things up and expect change. But how you express them is very crucial. It is one thing to say, it is really sad that you come back late. Later tonight. But if you say things like, you obviously don't care, that is why you always come back late. This is you communicating your feelings, but in different ways. The first one is more constructive. It is really sad that you have to come back late. Later tonight. That is you communicating your feeling. But when you say you obviously don't care, that is why you always come back late. Now you put this person in a position to defend, and this can lead to more conflict rather than communication. It is a wrong way of communicating it. Another tip is for you to learn to listen without being defensive. So we have seen that hearing and listening is different. However, even in listening, you still need to do more work. You need to learn to listen without being defensive. Your ability to hear each other's complaint without getting defensive is an indication of the maturity and strength of your communication. This is a lot harder to learn than learning how to express negative feeling constructively, but it is doable. So as couple who want to grow their marriage, you might want to intentionally learn how to communicate negative feeling constructively, but not stopping out there, but also learning how to listen without being defensive. Do not assume that your partner is always wrong, whereas you always want to justify your own actions. Another tip that is very beneficial is when you have tried every other thing, then try a different approach. If it is not working, you can try writing down your feelings, especially for partners that are drawn apart already. So you can choose to write down your feelings, you can choose to put it in a diagram, in a flow chart, just communicate it. This might sound funny, right? But it is still communication, and it really works, especially if that marriage is at that stage where the couples cannot see each other eye to eye. You can communicate this way to your partner, encouraging your partner to respond in the same way. Gradually, you subtle the heart of your partner that you people can come to the table and talk about anything. This can wake up a dying marriage if you intentionally use it, because everything begins at the heart. So long as your partner reads what you've written, it is effective and it can wake up a dying marriage. It can help you connect back. And the last tip I want to mention here, which is a very powerful tip, is forgiveness. Because we all err. Most importantly, if you forget every other tool in your communication toolbox, always remember forgiveness. It is an all-time marriage saver. It is important to seek forgiveness from your spouse as well as give forgiveness. That conflict or misunderstanding is usually as a result of what you said or what you think you heard. Never you put it to the other person that it is solely the other person's fault, because it is a two-way thing. It could either be as a result of what was said or what you think you heard. If you and your spouse can frequently forgive one another, then you can have a marriage that will stand through thick and thin. You will have a marriage that is long lasting, because every misconception would always happen, and every misconception comes as a result of ineffective communication. So misconception will begin to happen far lesser when there is effective communication. Because believe me, both of you will mess up big time. It is part of growing up in the marriage. So now that we've looked at several tips on how to attain serenity with effective communication in marriage, I'll quickly drop some tools that are quite effective in understanding your spouse and the way they choose to communicate. So these are some effective tools for effective communication in marriage. Couples often don't have lots of communication tools when they enter into marriage, especially for the fact that most marriage people go into them without seeking the right counsel or knowledge on marriage. They just go into marriage. But when conversation gets tough, they are at that point when they don't know what to do. And this is when they need these tools. So they need tools in addition to everything we've been discussing to keep their marriage thriving. The first tool and model I'm presenting to you today is what we call the TFA model approach to communication. And you might look at it. It's just simply about analyzing what you're thinking. So when you want to communicate with your spouse, what is your thoughts? What are you thinking? What are you feeding your thoughts on? Your thoughts feeds your feeling, and this controls how you behave. You are exactly what you think. During communication with your spouse, what are you thinking? The second part of this tool is for you to analyze, what are you feeling? Be sure to validate your feeling at every time. Be sure to validate any feeling you are experiencing, because all your emotions are valid. Don't push them aside or try to make them trivial. The way you feel during a conversation can make or destroy that conversation, which eventually turns out to destroy your marriage. So are you tense? Are you sad? Are you anxious? Are you angry? Are you hungry? This controls your response. Your ability to validate your feeling will help you normalize your feeling and put a name to it so that you are more able to manage it or navigate it. It is when you have done this successfully that you can begin to reflect on the choice you want to take about that feeling. Because this feeling generates your response. And that brings us to the last part of the model. With your thoughts and your feelings, what decision are you making? What action are you taking? What are you deciding to do? What is this thought and feeling spurring you to do? This helps you to evaluate your choice of response and how your marriage is measuring up in order to know the areas to improve on. It also helps you to analyze your spouse's response if you understand, to question your thoughts, your feelings, and the decisions you're taking. It helps you analyze your spouse's response. Communication in marriage is like a river. When thoughts and feelings are flowing smoothly between the spouse, things are fun and it feels good. However, when communication flow becomes turbulent or stiffened, then it becomes potentially dangerous and destructive to that marriage. When the communication gets blocked and the pressure builds up, there tends to be an outburst, like a damaging raging flood when the words start coming out. That is why it's important to track your feelings so that you can manage it. You must control what you think and what you feel. Another tool I bring to you today, which is a very powerful tool, like I mentioned earlier, that we use in the Institute of the Family Engineering and Development Center, is what we call the user manual. Just the way you buy your appliances and go for the instructional manual, when you got married to your spouse, did you bother to understand your spouse's instructional manual? How can you describe your spouse? What is your spouse compatible with? How do they function? How do they receive information? What is their makeup? What is the makeup of your spouse? What is the safety measure, that precaution you need to take during that conflict? Do you know that about your spouse? And what is the highest recommendation that time your spouse is at the verge of breaking? What do you do at that time? When your spouse is hurting, so it's not just about the spouse breaking. When you are the offender, when your spouse is hurting, what do you do? Do you know the exact thing you need to do to reset your spouse back to the functional mode? What will other people around say or think about your spouse? What do they know about your spouse? All these are evaluated in the user manual. And it goes beyond this. So if you would love to create a user manual for you and your spouse, you might want to contact me. But if you read deeply within the line and you find out that you can create this for yourself, that is good. So with this, we come to the end of this series. Until I come your way again on this series, tomorrow being the last day of the series, I remain your Serenity Coach, Chine Mobi. Bye. Good day. Finally, we come to the end of this series. Day 10 of the Effective Communication, a Marital Serenity Tool. The powerful Christmas gift for every couple that wants to build a happy home. If you followed my last series, you would learn by now that I love to give exercises and activities. And that's what we'll be doing today, the day 10 of this series. The last day of this series, I want to give to couples games that they can use to activate effectiveness in their communication, in their marriage journey. All games are attempted at re-establishing connection and trust within the marriage relationship. So the first game we shall be looking at is what is called the fireside chat. Simply, what this game is all about is for you to schedule a fireside chat. Schedule a time, maybe 15 to 30 minutes duration, once a week. That's not too much. With your spouse, where you just sit either by the fireside, lakeside, just a serene place to have a conversation. It is advisable that if what you want to say is about resolving conflict, it is advisable to start from a safer side of the conversation. If the magnitude of what you want to say is much, start from a safer side of conversation. You could start with things like entertainment, sports, leisure, fun, before you go into the controversial topic. Number 2 exercise is called the high-low. So in this activity, what it simply encourages couple to do is to talk about the high moments of their day and the low moments. At evening or bedtime might be a very good time to do this, because it helps the couples to share about the most important aspect of their day. So each of the couple is asked to speak. You share what was your highest, what's the high moment of your day. You share the best part of your day, and what was your low moment, what was the most disappointing part of that day. So after sharing it, the couple that is speaking does the talking, while the person spoken to does the listening. And in listening, you use the technique of empathy and understanding, trying to get what your partner is saying. The third game I would be given to you today is listening without words. So your partner is talking and you are just focusing. It's focused on the verbal and the non-verbal communication. That's what this exercise does. So the couple set a timer, maybe 3 minutes, 5 minutes, such that they take turns. So one partner is given the opportunity to verbalize what they think and feel without interruption. So one person is talking and this person should not be interrupted. Meanwhile, the other partner who is doing the listening use non-verbal techniques to convey empathy, understanding, and encouragement. So you do things like you keep eye contact, you could nod your head. When the timer goes off, the couple processes the experience by discussing about their observation, their feelings, and their idea. If you notice, this is a step higher than the high-low. And that is that after this timing, they discuss about their observations, their feelings, and their ideas. When processing this experience, it is important to use the right words. So you may say something like, I feel dash 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 when you do this, because this. So you fill in the blanks, right, as it applies to you. This is just the guide. So I feel dash when you dash, because this. I would like for you to. So you've already told the person your feeling, the action the person did, the reason why you felt that way, and the best way you will want to be communicated. And the other partner would respond in tone by saying, you sound dash because dash. Next time, I will dash and dash. So you are validating your spouse feeling. So you sound angry because I came back late. You are giving the reason. Next time, I would make it earlier home. You're promising to do something better. And I would be with you. I don't think if any communication takes this route, that the partners will conflict. The fourth exercise here is I see you. So this focuses on eye contact. The name of the game is I see you, and it focuses on eye contact. In this exercise, the couples keep two chairs. They keep it facing each other in a quiet and a relaxing environment. So both parties are asked to maintain eye contact. So they just look at each other, maybe for 5 minutes, without breaking or looking away. During this activity, the individuals are encouraged to allow their internal thoughts and feelings to surface through their facial expression, but they don't verbalize it. At the end of the activity, the couples are encouraged to discuss their experience, the level of their comfort or their discomfort while looking into each other's eyes, and their bodily sensation. What did they feel? Every individual is given the opportunity to. So aside this, every partner, the next partner is given the opportunity to guess what he or she feels the other partner was thinking during the connection exercise. So you try to guess what you think your partner was saying. You could also try to guess it in a non-verbal way by your body expression, but the most important thing, you try to guess what your partner is saying. The fifth exercise is what I call the stick and the stone. The stick and the stone game here addresses name calling and self-esteem. So most times you throw things at your spouse during your conversation, and you don't know that you are depleting their esteem. So this is targeted at making you understand that. So each of the partner is asked to independently list the disrespectful or the hurtful names that their partner have ever used on them or tagged them with. The couple then come together and they exchange their list so that they both read what the other partner have written. Each partner is now given a chance to express or to explain how each of those words or phrase impacted on their feeling and their confidence. This can very be carried out well during a therapy session. So a therapist will be a good guide for you to do this. Another exercise is what we call mirror on the wall. So this exercise helps you to practice active listening. It helps you to see yourself. One of the spouses asked to tell a detailed story in this exercise for a duration of time, say maybe 5 minutes, and then the other spouse is asked to reflect on what was being said or what he or she heard. So this spouse that is reflecting is tested based on their ability to employ or use active listening strategy and their level of understanding to determine the accuracy in mirroring back what their spouse said to them. This is very huge, right? Because it causes a lot of conflict in marriage. So something else is said and something else is understood. And the couples begin to fight each other. It helps you develop your active listening skill as a couple. The seventh game says it is all in the name. Yes, everything is in the name. This game is targeted at fostering connection, closeness, positive feeling and gratitude amongst couple. And in this game, each partner, one of the spouse, is asked to write down a compliment or the positive quality to describe each letter of the spouse name. So you give to the husband, you give to the wife. So the wife writes the husband's name, and against each letter, you write a compliment or a positive quality that describes that letter. After this write-up, they exchange their write-up and they read it while describing. As they do it, they describe the impact on their self-esteem and self-worth. This helps couples to value themselves, to build a healthy self-esteem, to build confidence, to develop the art of gratitude and connection. So these are the 7 games I want you to go practice this Christmas season, and your marriage will never remain the same. There are so many more, but if you come as close as using even 1 or 2 of this game and practicing all that we've been doing in this past 10 days, your marriage will grow for the better. Because trust conveys feelings of emotion and physical security, and it builds over time from honesty, reliable, and direct communication. So it is important for us to learn this. For full activation of the TFL model and the creation of the user manual, you might choose to call the number 081 71964889. And with this, we come to the end of this series. Enjoy your Christmas and have a restful holiday. Until we meet again, I remain your Serenity Coach, Chine Mobi. Bye.